I wanted to talk today about neuroplasticity. This is a fascinating concept and something that I just love talking about. So let's get started. So everything that we do begins with a thought. And so if we're going to change our behaviors or change our approaches to relationships, we first have to start paying attention to our thoughts and recognizing them and changing things from a thought perspective and within our thought world. The brain has neuroplasticity, which means that the brain is not fixed, it can change. The brain actually responds to our thoughts, feelings, and how regulated or dysregulated we are. We can actually direct the changes in our brain, which is awesome. So how does the brain change? Literally in hundreds of thousands of ways. So it changes at the molecular level, the cellular level, structural level, chemically, genetically. There's all these different ways that the brain can change. And we can actually affect how it changes. Just learning one new skill, if you're mindful about it, can literally remodel neurological coding on dendrites. So we can change our brain. We have the capability to change our brain on all of those levels by just starting in our thought world and how we're examining our thoughts and directing them. So we can change our neural connections and pathways just by controlling our thoughts. So we can actually become instead of becoming a bystander of our thoughts, we can actually become a first responder and take control of our thought world. And therefore, in turn, actually change our brain and the way that it processes the world around us. So Carolyn Leaf has studied this extensively, and she's got this great research and a lot of information that she obtained from studying this. And she looked at the brain and she looked at how experimental group that actually took control over their thoughts and their thought world, how that affected the brain at all these different levels. What she found was that at day 21, new neural connections and pathways were made. At day 42, they became automatic within the brain. By day 63, the individuals had actually transformed their brain. They transformed their mind and their brain, and this is where we learn that the brain has neuroplasticity and where we actually see it. So there were all these statistically significant changes, positive changes that we saw within the study. And what she learned was that there were changes that occurred at the cellular level within the blood. So chemicals like homocysteine and cortisol were affected. And these are chemicals that typically show our body's response to stress and are correlated with inflammation. So those things were improved. The electrical activity in the brain actually changed. And there were changes in the non-conscious and the conscious mind. So participants in the study who had worked on changing their brain from a neurocycle perspective actually walked away with significantly less experiences or feelings of depression and anxiety. They felt like they had better self-control and were more regulated from a nervous system perspective. So one part that's super interesting to me is looking at it from the cellular level. They actually went in and looked at chromosomes after this study. And what they found with the individuals who were working on fixing their brain and directing their brain from the neurocycle that she introduces, what they found was when they looked at chromosomes, the telomere length actually changed. So telomeres are these caps on the end of the chromosomes, which is, if you picture it shaped like an X, the caps on all the ends. So if you have a shoelace, for example, and it's got that cap on the end, that plastic cap, if that comes off, the shoelace will start to fray. So we can look at telomeres, and if they shorten, we know that there is biological aging and stress taking place. If they lengthen, we know that that is good, right? And the other thing we notice is, similarly, if those edges on the chromosome, the telomeres, start to fray, we know that there's biological aging going on. So what they found was that the individuals who worked on reframing their thoughts and controlling what happened to their brain through their thoughts, they actually had a lengthening of those telomeres versus shortening and fraying of them, indicating far less stress and indicating that there was a slower rate or a slowing of the rate of biological aging. So if you're worried about aging, stress, and having your thought world go unchecked with you having no control over it, actually is something that is correlated. So what does all of this tell us? If you want to read the book as well, it's Carolyn Leaf. It's called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. It's a great book. It's an easy read. It goes into details, but it's also pretty simplified. Great book. I highly recommend it. What all of this tells us is that toxic thoughts affect us significantly, and part of healing, that's where it starts. It starts with our thought world. So one of the biggest things that I do in coaching is help you to take control and become a master of your thought world. Taking all your thoughts, reframing them, and actually changing your brain and changing your nervous system based on different techniques and tools and strategies that I teach. So if this is something that you're interested in or learning more, or you feel like you could use some work there, please reach out. I'd love to work with you.